The weather, but I'm surviving. I think I have enough voice.
Hello?
This microphone, it'll be great.
Give me 2 seconds. 2 minutes.
2 seconds.
No.
2 minutes. 2 seconds.
No.
Oh my gosh, look at all this. Being recorded
I know, right?
for
All these
posterity.
cameras, yeah.
We better be on our best behavior, Mr. Amos.
Why start now?
No, let's have Tyler Rhodes all over again.
Moonshine, oh my moonshine.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop you.
I don't know what to do with this. It feels like very alien. It's like, what? Get out of my face.
You're feeling better.
This is interesting. You do fun things with your voice
Say
with
that
this
out
though.
loud, didn't I?
Yeah. Especially your voice.
Let's see. Oh boy. I sound like one of the orcs. I am Thrall.
Yesterday morning you looked like one of the orcs.
I did. It was a lovely shade of green. I feel like I just want to like bite this thing.
You've had your 2 minutes, dude. Move on.
Don't worry, Susie's recording it already. Just get her copy.
That's what everybody else does.
So, how do we start this?
Okay, well,
Oh,
I
wait.
just
Oh,
was
we have
wondering-
questions. This is good.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
just
thank
gonna
God.
start some questions here, and then we'll go to the audience. So,
Brilliant.
have you guys been in Massachusetts before? Have you been in this area?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
actually,
as well.
yeah, I came, you know, a few years ago actually. I came to see a play called Sleep No More, which was actually a big hit in New York, where you go into a hotel and it's all based on Macbeth, and you put masks on. I don't know if anyone knows about the show, but it actually started in Boston.
Wow.
And it started in a little school, an abandoned school in one of the old neighborhoods. So I came down and did that. I did the Freedom Trail. I actually walked the entire Freedom Trail.
Yay.
Yeah, I did it. I know.
Did you feel free?
I did feel free. Yeah, I did, with the beer at the end of it. No, it was good. Boston's awesome. And I would love to come here a different time of the year, like 3 weeks ago, but I'm sure it's a lot more pretty then.
What did you learn about Boston on your trip?
And what I learned about Boston, this is 4 years ago, dude. I don't remember anything from yesterday.
Those brains are
No, it's a sieve in here, dude.
You saw Paul Revere's house on the Freedom Trail.
Indeed,
Nice.
indeed, and we did the whole
I can't
Bunker
remember who
Hill
was Paul
stuff.
Revere. I know the name, but I can't remember his.
He was the one who said, "Oh, the British are coming. The British
Yeah.
are coming," and they're like, "Uh-oh."
He's like
Nah,
our
they ain't
version of
British.
Laura Secord. Right.
Yeah.
Who?
Our version of Laura Secord. Laura Secord was the Americans are coming. The Americans are coming.
Touche.
So I'm always curious, what inspired you guys to get into acting? Because every actor has a interesting journey how they became an actor.
Rent. Which usually, doesn't really make sense because most actors don't make any money, but somehow we managed to.
Yeah, somehow.
I don't know, what was yours? I know yours was your grandfather, right?
Yeah, mine was. I mean, other than living in Wales and going to a Welsh school, like a fluent Welsh school nursery, within the Welsh culture, ultimately is like a lot of singing, a lot of poetry. So there's a lot of performance-based stuff actually just within the schooling of the Welsh language. So there was that, but I mean, I grew up in a small village in Wales, in South Wales. My grandfather was a MC compere, is what we used to call them, in all sort of British Legion clubs, and they were really, really, really popular in the sort of 60s, 70s, and sort of halfway through the 80s. And they used to drag me along into these smoke-filled, drunk-fueled, clubs that were full of like 400 adults who were all having fun, all beautifully listening to people singing, telling jokes or whatever. And it was those days were quite special days where community really mattered, and a lot of people used to tell stories to each other. And I grew up in that. And I played a lot of sports, but I went between the two. And my grandfather, I think, because he never really got to do what he wanted to do, he was sort of living through me a little and pushing me along, and made me give up rugby and told me to go to a drama school in London. Yeah.
Which you won a scholarship to, right?
Yeah,
It was-
well, I couldn't go for 2 years. I go into Bristol or Vic first, which is one of the better ones, which is closer to Wales. And
Did
then,
you win the Anthony Hopkins thing?
And yeah, and then I couldn't do it for a year, and then I got into Lander, and I couldn't do it again, and then Anthony Hopkins paid for like a lot of my school fees. Yeah, so I was quite lucky, and I was then able to go to drama school, which costs about $100,000. And leave with no debt, which was, because I had it all paid for me. So I had to wait 2 years, but it was worth it.
We have doctors in Canada who spend less on their education than the actors in America. Isn't that amazing?
I don't know what I got for that 100 grand. A really hardy liver, I think.
But Paul, how did you end up working in Canada?
Well, Canadian women are beautiful. And yeah, you do know that, don't you? They're quite special.
That's the good clean water up there.
Yeah, it's good clean water. No, I did come over for a woman actually. It's probably a little bit more than you need to know about me. We won't carry on with that because I'm since divorced. No, I came over and to live here for a little bit. It was easier for me to get work in Canada than it was vice versa. Like an actress getting the work in London is really difficult if she's from North America. But a British actor moving to Canada is a hell of a lot easier for me to get work. And it was a bit of a bind because I was doing really well in London and I was really loving the theatre work and had an incredible agent and I lived with amazing people. I had an amazing community of like amazing actors that I lived with. And I left it all behind and went to Canada. And it took me about 2 years to recover from that ridiculous mistake. But since, it's come back around and I'm really quite happy that I moved to Toronto. And
we're happy to have him.
And I have another wonderful community of, amazing friends who are actors and I live a really quite blessed life there. I mean, I really am quite lucky and every day I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, Toronto's a beautiful city. It's absolutely beautiful. I was doing a little research, and Kris, I don't know, I vacationed there last year, so.
In the summertime, it's nice. It's good.
Now, I did some research, and Kris, is it true that you were a champion competitor in riding and fencing?
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that. That's really interesting.
Well, it actually answers the question you asked earlier.
Is this the 4 a.m. fencing? In the garden?
Which you're still marked by? I noticed it's bruised. I think I gave you that one.
Yeah, you did give me that one. Sorry.
I grew up in a farming town in southern Ontario, and I grew up horseback riding. My mom's dream, and I was doing 3-day eventing, and I was getting to quite a high competitive level, just pre-Olympic. It's called intermediate level. So you're having to spend a lot of money, and I'm at an Olympic barn, and I realized that it wasn't really my dream; it was my mom's dream. And but within the horseback riding community, there's an association for kids called Pony Club, and that's an international association. And there's a little sport in that called tetrathlon, which is riding, running, swimming, and shooting air pistols. And so you do this as like a 16-year-old, and it turned out that I was quite talented at it, and I was going to the national level, and I'm meeting all these great people. And then there's an Olympic sport called pentathlon, which is those 4 sports with fencing on top of it. So the natural progression is you go from one to the other. And I found out within that I was a very talented swimmer. So I dropped out of horseback riding, became a competitive swimmer for a few years. And this was all during high school. And I remember my buddy who I'd done this tetrathlon with, I'm like training my ass off, I'm swimming like about 22 hours a week. And I'm going to nationals in Sudbury, Ontario, which is a little mining community in the middle of nowhere. And he is training with me, and he's going to Junior Worlds for pentathlon in Rome, Italy. And I thought, you know what? I can do what you do. I can learn how to sword fight. And so the next year I started fencing, and then I won junior nationals that year, and then got a spot on the senior national team and was competing abroad for about 4 years. But there's no funding for Canadian athletes. So I was sitting there totally broke, middle of university. I'm studying international commerce. I guess the preface is I did want to become an actor as a kid, but my dad was like, no way, you're going to business school. And I had to agree with him because I didn't know the first thing about acting. I'm like, okay. And yeah, I was sitting in a cafe in Montreal, angst-ridden because I didn't know how I was going to pay off my like $22,000 of credit card debt that I've racked up traveling around the world. And I saw this little ad in a newspaper. It's like, wanted, actors or models. Come pay us $500 to get your headshot and we'll get you some work. Total scam thing, right? And I was like, okay. But I was like, oh my God, maybe I can do this. I was working a bartending job and I needed something. So I went, paid my $500, and the photographer actually said right off the bat, he's like, kid, you're never going to be a model. Your nose is too big. You look too weird. He's like, but it's a great way to meet chicks. And I'm like, okay. Thanks, buddy. I don't have a problem with chicks, but I have a problem with my bank account. Yeah, this agent still got, she was legit enough that she actually got breakdowns, which is how we get our jobs or get auditions. And an audition came along for a period piece kids movie called Young Ivanhoe. And I had the right look. I could sword fight, I could fence. I could sword fight and ride. And 4 callbacks later, the director called me personally and he said, I can't give you this part because you've never acted before in your life. I wish I could, but I can't. And I was crushed and like I spun out. But then 4 days later, he called back and said, you know what, come back and meet a couple other women. We'll do a screen test. And one of them was Rachel Blanchard. And yeah, we just, at the end of that session, he said to me, I can't not cast you in this part, because you are this character. And so he took a big risk on a kid who had never done anything, flew me over to Prague. I shot 5 weeks and played the lead in this movie and dropped out of school as soon as I got back home. And yeah, the rest is history, so to speak.
Now that's an interesting journey. Wow.
Yeah, that could be more polar opposite to mine. Mine was very, very by the numbers. That was not by the numbers at all.
Now let's talk about the audition process for Lost Girl and how you guys got the roles.
Well, I just went in there, did my scene, and that was it.
It was just so good, they just went, welcome.
I literally just went in and did it once. I never had a callback and do anything.
It's got a great fake British accent.
No, it was great. I did just sometimes when you do an audition, or sometimes when you get a part. I mean, you know when it's right. For me, anyway. I mean, I know that when I can get into a ballpark or a range where I know if I do the right thing and I'm 2 inches less than the other guy and my eyes are a little bit more brown or when those decisions go your way, that I can definitely be in or thereabouts, and that they usually don't need to see me again because like I'll do it well enough on the first time. And I don't have too many roles where I need to, take my kid off like this guy and get into bed with people. So I don't do too many screen tests for.
My days
like
are getting pretty done with that, though. So.
So I don't do chemistry reads, which is generally when you get all those crazy callbacks where they want to check to see, if you have something going between the two of you and all that sort of shit. Or, you didn't quite do a good enough job in the first audition and then they need to bring you back again because they like your look but you were shit. And they
a lot
just
of
want to
times
see.
they just want to see, the director wants to see if you can take direction as well.
Yeah.
Like you may do a great take one time, but they want to see if you're adaptable and if you can work back and forth. That's what a lot of the callback is sometimes for.
And I would say our law school auditions were getting to be quite unique because actually nearly everyone was in the room. Like it was stacked, and it was a small room, Lisa's place at that point in time. And a lot of the times you'll either see the casting director first, and then they say, okay, these are our picks, and then you meet maybe the director and producer. But it's very rare that you'd have you get lots of people in there, and it was a stacked room from Jay to
Jay,
Wendy,
Vanessa, Wanda,
John Fawcett, both casting directors, they were all in there, and it was clearly a project that they were, that they really wanted to get right, and they spent time on it. So I did the one audition, and then I waited for 3 weeks, and I said, I'm going to Morocco, because they were they really like it, they're just waiting on network approval. And then I just went to Morocco for a couple of weeks and got a call in Marrakesh saying that, even though my character at that point died in the pilot, it was I knew it was a really cool part. So I thought, well, at least I have one cool part on my show reel.
But he was so cool that they said, we can't possibly kill this guy. In fact, he has survived. Well, I can't even say, but he's...
I know.
He just keeps surviving this
I
man.
have the cat. It's many lives on this show. But I think, yeah, and that's mine. His is completely different by the way.
Well, not so much. Well, yeah, I guess it is. Because I had to do the chemistry test that he's talking about. It's like, so when I read this, I immediately gravitated to it. Like, I grew up reading, I'm a geek and nerd. I grew up reading Dragonlance, playing those little TSR Dungeons and Dragon games on my Commodore 64. Remember when you like, yeah, dragon, you know, like, honestly, I would play those games for like hours and like live in my imagination. I'm an only child. I grew up on a farm. It was me, my dog, and my bow and arrow in the back countryside fighting goblins.
Yeah,
and so
still does this too.
I do.
4 in the morning.
He was my goblin. Yeah, and you know, like, Paul went to Lambda. I had my imagination and a forest and a bow and arrow, and that was kind of my training for like how to live in these imaginary worlds and make them real. And so when I read Lost Girl, I was like, this is something that I can sink my teeth into, shall we say. And so I knew that I wanted this. The pilot script was fantastic. It was dark, it was gritty, it was like, it was a little bit more mature than how the show ended up going. Different, you know, there's a lot of different voices as the show develops and they can change, but that first pilot script by Michelle Lovretta was just what I wanted to do.
Yeah, very similar to True. Oh, well, it was different to True Blood. But I remember True Blood started off in a similar vein. It had that. There was some cool stuff happening and a darker edge stuff going on with that.
When we were shooting our pilot, there
and then True Blood went a different way completely as well.
Yeah, see, that's what happens. Things change. But yeah, I read this and I remember walking into my first audition and just kind of going, this is mine. You know, you walk into an audition room and there's all these guys sitting around and I was just like, sorry fellas.
And this is
not saying that out loud. You might as well all go home. No,
this is another trait of Kris Holden-Reid. He is incredibly competitive. 4 in the morning. 4.
I definitely have a healthy sense of competitiveness.
Which I think every actor has to have.
Yeah.
I think, well, not every actor.
You just can't let it become your dominant nature. You can't, you know, you have to use it for its purposes, but you can't let it become something that affects your relationships negatively.
No, because it's play, and you have
to
to have a certain amount of like competitiveness and confidence to play.
And it's all collaborative, right? So yes, you can be competitive. I want to be good, do the best that I can be, and that's kind of how you have to gauge it. It's not about I'm going to be better than you.
Yeah.
It's like I'll be my best, you'll be your best, and you know, life rules that we all figure out along the way. Anyway, so I did this thing, and then I had to go and do a screen test with Anna Silk, and there was another woman there who I won't mention because I don't remember her name, to be honest. But I knew it was going to be Anna. Like, I could just tell. And Anna says later, she was like, I knew it was going to be you too. So we just we went in, we knew we just had to hit it out of the park. And what we did was, there was a makeout scene, and I just grabbed her, lifted her up, and we went up against the wall to have a really intense makeout. And I didn't realize this though, she was wearing a very short skirt, and it was starting, as I lifted her up, it rode up. And she, my body was covering her, but she told me after, she was just like, holy fuck, my skirt. And I put her up against this wall, and all we heard was, and I had put her into the wall hard enough that we broke the drywall. And and Jay Firestone, our executive producer to this day, goes, I knew at that moment that I got my right too. Actually, we broke through the wall, which in theater is a term. There's the fourth wall, which is the imaginary wall, and trying to break through the wall. So yeah.
And bang, you were cast. Wow.
That was it.
Is Anna okay from
Just
that?
bust shit.
Bang.
Anna's okay. She has recovered. Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and I'm going to turn around over to the audience. Now I want you guys to be thinking about good questions now, okay?
Yeah, because all of his was shit.
That was called acting, Paul.
Yeah.
That was good, right?
Yeah,
That was good.
I'm not very good at that.
No, I mean, we have a dark fae here and a light fae. You know, good
Mhm.
guy, bad guy. Would you ever want to switch the roles? Or do you?
No.
No.
Nah, why bother?
You know, I think we both were cast very suitably for what we do. I'm really blessed to have played Dyson, like that, the shape shifting, just all the different things that I've been able to do through this character. The cop kind of work, the fantasy kind of work, the body swap, like all these different things that we've had to explore on this show. It's really been like we've both said we've come out of this, and there's really nothing we can't do now. It's been an incredible training ground. Just for our craft, because the show is very challenging. Like it's fast and it's furious how we shoot it. The lines, when you read them on the paper, sometimes seem totally ridiculous, and you have to make this stuff real, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many times did we say the Garuda in season 2? Like by the end of it, we wanted to shoot ourselves in the face if we just had to say Garuda one more time.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
true. People don't realize. Yeah, a lot of other shows, particularly American shows. I mean, it took a lot longer to film. They've got big budgets and way bigger.
Way bigger.
And the amount of support level that you have is greater. You know, a lot of the time, the writing has gone through so many different processes to get to where it needs to be. But things work a little bit quicker in Canada. I mean, it's down to funding, down to scheduling, down to all that stuff, and sometimes the pressure's on because you're like, especially when we were coming to filming the last season, because you're like, you're closing out stories, you're closing out things that matter to people who are fans of the show, and you want to get those things right, and you want to make those right choices, and it has to be done sometimes really quickly. You don't get to talk about it. You have that. You're on the floor. You're going, okay, this is a major choice right here. We're coming to the end.
Yeah.
This has a dramatic effect on where this is all panning out. But yeah, it's good though, and
Keeps you on your toes.
Keeps you on your toes. And when we move into a bigger project with more time and money, it'll be a lot easier for us.
Now, season 5 is premiering soon.
Yes.
In December.
In Canada, yeah.
December 7th, which means you all will be watching it December 8th.
Yeah.
Got any tidbits that you like to throw out?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anything you can spoil?
What
If you all shut off your cameras, we can tell you all you want to know.
And you pinky swear not to tell anybody about it.
Hit pause, hit pause.
Pinkies in the air.
Where do we start?
Where do we start?
Where do we end?
So we're 8 and 8, yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you know that, but we did 16 episodes that are gonna. Oh, I think Anna announced this, right? That we're doing 16, and then it will air as 8 and 8.
Yeah, so I think the first 8 will happen as of January, with all those breaks in between, in January and February, for all those crazy holidays, Super Bowls, Oscars. So always you forget about all those days that you missed.
So really it'll take 4 months.
4 months to get through 8 episodes, and then were they planning September for the next 8?
I don't know.
I think they said September. So we're on for most of next year.
But let's see. Spoilers they asked about. What can
Just a
we
little hint, little nugget.
Well, I look different. I pretty much look like. Well, no, my character choice for Vex in season 5 was after being responsible for the death of Kenzie and Hale. That Vex basically went off to Berlin and partied really hard for 2 months. So he sort of come back with a little bit of a Hitler
He
look.
comes back speaking German, looking like Heil Hitler. It's Vex of the Third Reich.
Pretty much.
He has a little mustache, and then his arm is coming out.
No, it's different. He's come back, and he's come back to try and make amends. I think he's gone away to think about what's happened. He, obviously really distraught with what happened to Kenzie. It's not that I don't think he ever wanted to do that. He was just kind of duty bound by this relationship that he'd had with Massimo.
And the nice thing about season 5 is actually there's a great episode for Paul and I where we.
My first episode back, actually.
And it's really just the two. There's other stuff going on, but we're the 2 people that actually really kind of go through that, and so yeah. Stay tuned.
We actually really that's the episode was written by Stephen
Cochran.
Steve Cochran, and For me, it was a really great episode because I sometimes find with shows that huge things happen, and you don't necessarily you want the characters to go through that process of, it's like if anything happened in your life, you want to go through that process of catharsis, of going through it, of having that argument, or having that one big thing of like, let's get through, like, I hate you, you're responsible for that. And like sometimes even with family members it takes like 2 years, and then eventually you go, well, you treated me that way and you did that, well, yeah, well, that was because of this. And we have a whole episode where we get to basically hash out all of our grievances, and you know, it's all through our relationship with Kenzie and Hale and what happened. And I think it's a massive turning point for both of the characters in lots of senses. And then we have a very different relationship as we move forward. And
there's some new characters who get introduced this year. But really what this...
Your son? No.
No. Anyway.
Or is it your daughter?
Yeah, that's right.
Or is it your long lost...
My long lost wolf love.
Your long lost wolf. You have a daughter, don't you?
Yeah, right.
Wolf daughter.
What we get to do though, which is really nice about this season, is that we get to end the show. We knew that we were going to come to an end, so we got to round off with storylines. So, and I think that I was actually quite happy with how we ended the show. Whereas a lot of shows just get cut off, you know, and you're kind of left in that mid-trailer, what's going to happen next? We actually get to end it in a nice way. And so everything about these 16 episodes is like ramping up to exploring those last questions that were really pertinent to Beau's life, coming to some conclusions, some character conclusions. A couple new things get introduced, but then at the end, it's really about...
So it's all family. I would say the big man's family. Like, you know, he's got a whole family of wolf cubs that we get introduced to, and I get my father, which is Marilyn Manson. Yeah, it's awesome. But you know, here's a tidbit. Here's a good spoiler. Well, it's not a spoiler. It's just info. On season 4, we were actually scheduled to do a scene with Marilyn Manson.
He was going to come and do the show.
He was going to come and play my father. And we were all down to do it. I was booked in, and he was coming in to tour, and the whole studio was booked out on a Saturday. And for